It's official. The Pizza Bear game is now 11 years old. Five Nights at Freddy's has come a long way, and personally has had a huge impact on my life. I literally don't know what I'd be doing right now without it. I mean, just look around my room for a second. With a series as old as this one, it's impossible to avoid changes, both positive and negative. FNAF has had countless changes, but one stands out to me as the biggest. The biggest single change Five Nights has gone through in its entire existence is when Steel Wool overtook the creation of these games. The community has wildly mixed feelings on this, even to this day, and I'd like to look at the question from my point of view. I'll be covering several different topics, gameplay, lore, etc., and find out if this studio's influence on the franchise is good or not. Real quick, be sure to like the video if you like it, and subscribe for plenty more FNAF content. Make sure you grab a slice of that Fazbear pizza, an ice cold fizzy Faz, and let's begin. One of the most important aspects of a FNAF game, or any game for that matter, is of course the gameplay. One of the core reasons Five Nights at Freddy's was so popular when it first came out was because of the strong and unique mechanics of the first game. There was nothing quite like it at the time, and it really stood out. The games are also fairly replayable due to the randomness of the animatronic movements. All of Scott's games, besides FNAF World, all mostly followed the formula of the first game. It's simple, yet insanely effective. The success of those first 6 games is in no small part due to this style of gameplay. Now, we could get into the specifics of each game, but that's not the point here. As a series, Scott's games were solid in their gameplay. Some were better, and some were worse, of course, but overall the community enjoyed and continues to enjoy all of these games. There's no arguing that Scott didn't do a good job with the original series, evolving on that office gameplay with each new release. But how do these games compare to the direction that Steel Wool is going with the gameplay? These games, from Help Wanted all the way up to Secret of the Mimic, all vary in their gameplay quite a bit. That makes generalizing this group like I did with Scott's games, well, impossible. Let's take a quick look at each one, starting with Help Wanted. This one features that classic FNAF office gameplay in a whole new way. This series is perfect for VR, and Steel Wool proves this with the fantastic recreations of the original games. That's not all though. This game and its DLC comes with a variety of levels all on its own. From repairing the animatronics to frantically building Mangle, the strong suit here is the variety. There's something for everyone here. Their next game was Security Breach. While I will go into the state of this game later in the video, right now it's purely about the gameplay. This game is supposed to be a stealth free roam, and while that's a great idea for FNAF, it doesn't execute it well. The inclusion of Freddy, the Phaser Blaster, and the camera just kind of nullify any threat you may encounter. Anyways, more on Security Breach later. Ruin was a complete shift. Like night shift because it's FNAF and you work the night shift. Okay, I'm sorry. It's fully linear, with very few side areas to explore. The gameplay is again different, the Vanny mask adding a ton of unique opportunities. It's a solid game with fun but simple mechanics. This one also brings back the use of the cameras, at least a bit, playing noises to lure threats away, kinda like FNAF 3. It's a significant improvement from Security Breach. Help Wanted 2 is when Steel Wool starts to perfect their gameplay. This game offers a ton of variety, with something for everybody. It's fun and simple, and is a strong showing for Steel Wool. All the levels are fun, and offer a ton of replayability. The only thing that is a recreation here is the sister location levels, but even those have significant changes made to them that stand out. Overall, just a great experience for unique and engaging FNAF gameplay. Finally, we arrive at the latest release in the series, Secret of the Mimic. This one takes the concept of security breach and perfects it. It's a stealth game with strong and fun mechanics. Each environment is a different playground for the main threat to chase you in. The difficulty scaling is also done super well here. It's pretty simple, but never gets too repetitive, as it's always switching things up in some way. Combine that with a mix of fun little puzzles, and you've got a game with, again, some very strong gameplay. That ends Steel Wool's current catalog of games. So, what's the verdict? Comparing the two eras, Scott's games are simple and all similar to each other. That doesn't make them bad by any means. They're very strong in terms of gameplay. Steel Wool was a little rocky at the start, but they're trying wildly different stuff with each new game. They've improved greatly from the disaster that was Security Breach, and have some really cool ideas for Five Nights at Freddy's. It's hard to compare the two, as I love what both have done with the gameplay. In terms of the topic of this video, I think Steel Wool is doing great, and taking the series in an amazing direction. I think most of what I just said is fairly agreed upon. Actually, never mind, I shouldn't say that. Anyways, let's move on to something that is way more divisive within the community. I'm of course talking about the lore. FNAF lore is complicated, and everybody knows this. One continuous story across this many games is an insanely hard thing to handle, and switching the people working on that story does not help in the slightest. Let's start with how Scott handled things. His story was split into two eras of its own. The first, with the first three games, is what I call the Happiest Day era. It focuses greatly on the tragedy of the MCI. There's little to no personality to any of the characters in this time, with Scott mostly focusing on the dates when things happened and the locations they took place at. This style of storytelling is very vague, with just enough details to form a story, but not enough to show the whole picture. This style allows for a thriving theorist community, even to this day. Is it healthy for the series though? That's not really my call to make. The next three Scott games focus on the Afton family. This is way more personal, with relationships and characters being the main focus. The dates are quite vague from these games, no longer being in the spotlight. The actual storytelling is similar to the earlier games, with just enough hints to form the base of the story, the rest being up for interpretation. The way he hides the lore is also similar, mainly through hidden minigames that are fairly difficult to find. Many consider Scott's work to be the golden age of the FNAF story, saying that it kind of falls off after Ultimate Custom Night. Is that really the case though? The Steel Wool era of lore is wildly different from Scott's, the focus being on AI takeover. Help Wanted is essentially a soft reboot of Five Nights at Freddy's for many different reasons. Every one of these games is connected by a single thread, the Mimic. Rather than focusing on really any of the missing kids, we've opted for a story about an AI that's gone rogue. It's a big shift, but one that was almost necessary for the series. Think about it. You can only cover the same incident so many times without it getting boring. Personally, I love the approach they've taken to refreshing the lore and story, but I know that's not a universal opinion. Their way of telling the story is also quite different, with a huge focus on environmental storytelling. They still use Scott's method of hidden minigames too, but they're far less hidden than really anything from those old games. As a result, these games tell a far more direct and filled out story. I will say that it took them a long time to get there, but it's an engaging way to tell the lore. They still leave enough details unanswered to lead to a large amount of theorizing, something that FNAF needs in order to stay around for a long time. There are a lot of differences, but also some similarities between the two different ways the lore and the story have been presented. Looking at the two, there's no easy way to say if one is better than the other. That honestly comes down to whatever you prefer. One thing you can say though is that Steel Wool has taken Scott's style and evolved it beautifully into modern FNAF. Remember that every decision is approved and verified by Scott. So if you don't like the story, well, it's still his story. Steel Wool absolutely has an influence on it, but everything is still approved by the man in charge. With that being said, let's talk about something I actually do have an issue with in some of the Steel Wool games: the tone. The classic FNAF games are pretty dark, both in their tone and looks. Some of the darkest moments in the series are in these games. The Bite of 83. No, I'm not going to make a bite joke this time. The whole thing with those dead kids or whatever. Michael throwing up Ennard and getting scooped. All of that is honestly pretty damn dark if you think about it. Now, they never show most of it in anything more than 8-bit minigames, but just the concepts and ideas that were being thrown around are enough to really get you thinking about how horrific these events are. The games themselves are also just quite eerie and do try to be scary. There's a few exceptions, of course. Pizza Sim's Tycoon mode comes to mind, but overall his games have always had a dark and scary tone to them. Steel Wool, on the other hand, is varied, to say the least, when it comes to tone. Help Wanted and its DLC are great in terms of the gameplay and environments. The story is also still dark in tone, although not as much as the original games are. Where they really deviate though is Security Breach. This game is a complete shift in tone from any other mainline game before it. Bright, colorful, and not at all scary. It has its moments, of course, like the Endo section, but overall it's just not the slightest bit eerie. This is a huge problem, as FNAF is at its strongest when its tone is dark. Ruin does a fantastic job at fixing the issues with Security Breach's tone, and as a result is a much better experience. The story is not as dark as the older games, but the actual environments make up for that. Unfortunately, Help Wanted 2 moved in the wrong direction. It's a great game for gameplay, but the tone suffers quite a bit. Most of these minigames, even in VR, are just not scary at all. It's a fun game, but if it wasn't for the characters, it doesn't really feel quite like a FNAF game. Where they really lock in is Secret of the Mimic. Now, I already made a couple of videos talking about the environments here, but they really have that classic FNAF feel to them. Dark and eerie, this is exactly the tone that people have come to expect from a mainline entry. It's not just the environments though. Secret of the Mimic's story is chilling. A robot becoming something that it was never intended to be, then essentially killing its creator. I think for this point, Scott's games take the cake. Secret of the Mimic is a promising change and has me hopeful for the future of FNAF under Steel Wool. Now, there's one big thing that I haven't talked about yet that I think is crucial to understanding if FNAF is in the right hands. That thing is nostalgia. That's right, it's time to talk about it. The gameplay, the lore, the tone, all of that stuff it's fine, like it's great. They're good points, but really think about it for a second. Five Nights at Freddy's is a series that a ton of modern day fans grew up with as kids. Because of that, people may be resistant to big changes with the stuff that they grew up with. I fully believe that's the reason for most older fans not liking the series nowadays, despite FNAF being in a very strong place currently, with a second major film just months away from release. It's hard because I get it. I do miss the early days of this series, with Scott's teasers on his site, those old trailers I made my last video on, and the overall hype around everything. Things have changed, and that's okay. We wouldn't have a community as big and diverse and as talented as we do now. FNAF could have never survived as long as it has, with more sitting in your office and surviving games. Change is good sometimes, and I just think people need to embrace it more and stop being so hard on the series. So, the big question Is Steel Wool good for Five Nights at Freddy's? I would certainly say yes. FNAF is thriving currently, and it shows no signs of stopping, with collabs as big as Dead by Daylight, a main attraction at Halloween Horror Nights, a nearly infinite amount of merch, and a dedicated community. This series shows no signs of stopping anytime soon. A big part of that is undoubtedly the way Steel Wool is handling the series. I know that Scott has the final say, but you can tell that they get a decent amount of creative freedom, and it's making a good impact on the series. If you like the video, be sure to like it and subscribe for more. Comment if you have any requests or ideas for future videos you want to see. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye, superstars.